Hello, and welcome to our annual Azure Cosmos DB Developer Conference. I'm Kirill Gavrylyuk, I lead the Azure Cosmos DB team, and I'm so excited to have you all here today. Now, Azure Cosmos DB is all about apps, intelligent apps, and these intelligent apps has few things in common. To build an intelligent app, you have to iterate a lot, make a lot of changes. And to make those changes, you have to have your database be very flexible towards changes, with not enforcing any schema. Also, you want to use AI, and AI is best at reasoning over semi-structured and unstructured data. We don't need AI to reason over table of floats. Databases are already great at it. But to reason over language, natural language, semi-structured data, that's perfect fit for AI. Now, intelligent apps learn everything they can about the user, and to do that, they have to handle uneven, variable, very high volume of traffic. The database have to provide high scalability and elasticity. At the same time, you want to provide contextual, real-time experiences to your users. And so, database have to provide real-time, low-latency responses to your queries at any scale. Finally, your app wants to be global. Most apps do, because users are everywhere. You have potential to gain users in any part of the world, and you want to bring the data wherever your users are. The database have to scale globally. And even if your app is not global, you still want your database to have redundancy, to support multiple region deployments. Because if your app is down, your business is down. So you never want this to happen. Now, Azure Cosmos DB was built with these requirements in mind. It's AI ready out of the box. It has built-in vector indexing capabilities, and it's also built for semi-structured data. It is built for this fast iteration where you change your data shape, where a single collection, single database can handle queries from your V1 of your application as well as V1000 of your application. Azure Cosmos DB provides guarantees for performance and scale. It has flexibility and efficiency both for the semi-structured data it is built for, as well as cost efficiencies where it instantly scales to what your application needs at any time, while providing the same low latency performance SLAs. Now finally, Cosmos DB is known as the best database for mission-critical applications. It offers you 5.9 SLA guarantees and performance guarantees with active deployments. Now, what does it make Cosmos DB best for AI? Now, first, it has built-in vector indexing and hybrid search. Today for MongoDB API, and in the future for all APIs very soon. It has first-class support for semi-structured data, documents data, very flexible data model, and where you can store both vectors and your data in the same place consistently without requiring you to provision yet another vector search service. It has turnkey integration with Azure AI platform, including Azure OpenAI. And it has limitless scale while guaranteeing low latency, single-digit millisecond latency at any scale and 5 nines reliability. Now, AI is used for any use cases these days. These are just some examples of the use cases where a combination of Azure Cosmos DB and AI is the best fit. You have connected smart products that we're going to talk about later in the show. You have transaction processing at any scale, intelligent. You have real-time fraud detection, fraud prevention that we'll also discuss shortly. You have many customers, tens of thousands of customers have built enterprise copilots today with Cosmos DB. You have information, product discovery, catalog, retail, personalization and recommendation. All these scenarios, you can extract more value with AI, and you want to use a database that provides you flexibility, some support for semi-structured data, and scale. Now, let's go take a look at several patterns used in these applications. The first one you'll recognize right away, it's RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is something we learned how to pronounce over the past year. And for those of you who were able to avoid that, let me remind you how RAG works. You have the data, you store the data in your database, Cosmos DB in this case, and you vectorize this data and you store the vectors so that later on, when the user asks a question to the app, we can vectorize the prompt and get all the most relevant data from the database and pass this data as a context to the large language model together with the prompt so that LLM can provide you the best possible answer, the most relevant answer. Now, with Cosmos DB, there are several advantages. When you store the data and vectorize it, you can store vectors together with your data in the same place, in the same database, because Cosmos DB provides built-in vector indexing capability. Also, in RAG, it's very rare that you just use vector indexing. You want to use a hybrid search, hybrid queries that involve vectors, vector queries, nearest search, as well as attribute filtering, as well as full text search. And those are the capabilities Cosmos DB gives you out of the box. Now, once you have the question, the prompt, and you retrieve the most relevant context, and you get the right answer, you may also want to store your prompts. Most copilots do. They store the prompts as a conversation history for two reasons. One, it's a semantic cache. So you don't have to regenerate embedding, regenerate the vector for similar questions that you already asked in the past. And second, so that you can extract the context of your conversation and provide this context, just like you have context for the data, you can provide context of the conversation to the LLM to get an even better contextual answer to the user's question. Now, vectors have broad applicability, even if LLM is not used directly. For example, here we have ASOS website. ASOS is an online major retailer selling clothes. To show the users personalized real-time recommendations, you may also like products. Given a choice, ASOS uses vectors to capture similarity between the products, as well as behavioral similarity based on the prior purchase history of the user. Vectors really brings us a more powerful like clause in the query. It brings semantics to the database query. Now, finally, as AI use cases evolve, you will have more than one LLM involved in a given use case. These multi-agent use cases where multiple LLMs are conversing, whether it's hierarchical conversation or peer-to-peer conversation, requires a database that can capture fast, distributed transactional log, a database that can provide you a semantic cache of prompts, a database that can provide you conversational history at any scale and with low latency between these agents. Cosmos DB is a very good fit for multi-agent use cases as a flexible, schemaless database with a guaranteed performance SLA and limitless scale. Now, let me invite to the studio one of our customers, TomTom, who are on the edge of using AI in their applications. I would like to welcome Massimiliano Ungheretti to our studio. Massimiliano, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My short name is Massi, and I'm a staff data scientist at TomTom, where I work on data and machine learning for different product areas, including, for instance, the search engine that actually runs in many cars. But the past year and a bit have been all about generative AI for me. So we've been identifying different opportunities to apply different techniques coming out. And I'm particularly proud of the work we've done on the latest advances for voice assistants for use in cars.
That's awesome. It's really great to have you. Massimiliano, you guys were on the edge and you adapted AI very early. Could you tell us a little more about the use case where you use AI and Cosmos DB together for your application?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is the in-vehicle assistant I was talking about. This assistant lives in the cloud in the first instance, and we obviously needed some kind of database solution to get started. And so Azure Cosmos DB was kind of the go-to solution. To make it much more concrete, we've been, using the Python SDK because that was our prototype Python to interact with the NoSQL database. And primarily, the very foundation of any kind of assistant or chatbot is the conversation history, because otherwise we'd be like a goldfish. So that's the first place that it hit. But we've started storing other things in there as we went along. So in that way, it kind of also supported the prototyping process.
That's awesome. And what's the capability? You had a choice of many databases. What capabilities of Cosmos DB you found particularly useful for your scenario?
Yeah, so I learned from previous projects that, well, taking off-the-shelf managed services is a great starting point, usually. And so we started exploring them. But basically, most of the candidates that we ended up with were, flavors of Cosmos DB. So that basically became the choice. I think the major alternative would be to go for a SQL database, where I think you will have to think of all your data structures beforehand, and it slows you down, even if it's just a little bit. You can try, immediately to change your data structures on the fly if you're using a NoSQL database. So that kind of made the final decision, I think.
That makes sense. I've heard this from many developers building AI applications that said to make an application smart, you have to iterate fast. And to iterate fast, NoSQL database, they were kind of built for this purpose.
Yeah, I think this is especially important when developing for AI because it moves much faster, right? So if you're doing well, you're going to be trying out ideas from lots of different papers and blogs all the time. And, one less bottleneck to try out things is always great.
That makes a lot of sense. What did you learn through your journey? I think this would be a great lessons for our viewers as they're all on the same journey as you.
Yeah, so I'll touch on that on our session. But what I find personally most exciting is that generative AI is kind of opening up a new, and this sounds a bit pompous, but a new programming paradigm. Yeah, so you move some things from code to language, which changes everything about how you develop. So I would say, for instance, testing, even basic testing becomes different because you have non-deterministic behavior in models. What's a good answer, right? So you have a lot more fuzzy answers in assistance. That's a difficult problem. So lots of new programming patterns. I think that's one thing to watch out for. I think especially relevant for people watching this is retrieval augmented generation, RAG, which I'm sure are going to be featured in a bunch of sessions. And well, the second lesson definitely would be that this quick iterations, especially if you're doing AI apps, are really important.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Massimiliano. Just to remind everyone, Massimiliano has a session later in the day. Please be sure to tune in. Really exciting stuff. I had a preview. It's great learnings, great lessons for everyone building AI applications all around how do you test, how do you build responsible AI applications. Thank you so much, Massimiliano. So great to have you on the show.
Sure. Thank you.
I would like to thank you, Massimiliano. And I'm really excited about what they're going to build and what they've built today with Azure Cosmos DB and OpenAI. Now, many applications have been built with Azure Cosmos DB and AI together, including ChatGPT itself. Azure OpenAI uses Cosmos DB for all of their user interactions. And there are two reasons for it. One, they chose Cosmos DB as a database that allows them to iterate fast, because to build intelligent apps, you have to iterate fast and change your data shape. And Cosmos DB provides schemaless support. And second, Cosmos DB scales transparently and limitlessly. As you look at this graph, as OpenAI added new capabilities, the traffic keeps growing. Phenomenal growth. More than 100 million users in less than 6 months. And Cosmos DB just transparently was scaling behind the scenes. OpenAI did not have to do anything, did not have to upgrade or do any operations on the database. It automatically and seamlessly scales. Now, this instant autoscale has been one of the pillars of Cosmos DB for a while. And last November, we announced a new behavioral addition to autoscale, a change that allows autoscale to respect the variability in your traffic. Beforehand, autoscale would scale, just like many distributed databases, would scale all nodes, all physical partitions to the needs of the busiest one. Sometimes that means it scales too much and you have a lot of over-provision capacity you're not using. With this change, dynamic autoscale, per partition, per region autoscale, Cosmos DB now scales each partition individually for the needs of the application. And it's good for two reasons. One, if you have uneven traffic, you don't pay for the needs of the busiest partition across the board. And if you have added a second region for reliability, for these 5 nines, you don't have to pay for the second region, just like you do with other databases, with Cosmos DB, you only pay for what you use. So that secondary region can be scaled down to close to zero, and you only pay when you actually direct traffic to that second region. Now, multi-region deployments are very popular with Cosmos DB because it offers you this turnkey active-active setup with providing you 5 nines and RTO 0, automatic failover. Many customers are using Cosmos DB active-active multi-region writes capability, including Walmart.com, ABN AMRO. And I'd like to invite into the studio one of our customers, MasterCard, who is also taking advantage of active-active to provide this superior availability and reliability to their users. I'd like to welcome MasterCard to the studio now. I would like to welcome Siddiq Hamid and Niraj Javia from MasterCard. Welcome to our show. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Awesome. Thanks, Kirill. Yeah, I'm Siddiq Hamid, VP of Software Engineering at MasterCard. So I work specifically at Ethica, which is a MasterCard company specialized in fighting fraud and preventing credit card disputes. So at a high level, what we do, I wanted to kind of quickly give some brief background of my role here, and then I'll hand over to Neeraj after that. So at a high level, I lead engineering teams working on Consumer Clarity Platform. So what is Consumer Clarity Platform? Essentially, what it does is it connects card issuing banks and merchants to provide rich purchase information, like by providing recognizable merchant names, logos, digital receipts, and subscription control. And then, again, there's we're going to touch upon a lot more than that. So I'm solely responsible for coming up with the strategy and executing the build work and make sure operationally the platform is fully up and running, and catering to our customers and day in day out basis. Back to you, Kirill.
And Niraj, would you mind introducing yourself and what you do?
Yeah, sure, Kirill. My name is Neeraj Javia. I'm Director of Software Engineering at MasterCard. Apart from building new capabilities on the Clarity ecosystem, which Siddiq just mentioned, one of the focus areas is how to make that platform reliable and scalable as we grow. So that is one of my key focus area, and that's where the Azure Cosmos DB comes into the play. So back to you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's great to have you on the show. So maybe we can start with a use case. Siddiq, would you mind telling us a little more? I know you mentioned fraud detection. What do you do and how do you use Cosmos DB in that use case?
Awesome. So it's more of a fraud prevention and credit card dispute prevention, if I can put it that way, right? So Consumer Clarity is a data intensive platform, right? So which we offer really real-time high throughput APIs where we need to perform certain operations in a fraction of a second. So currently, our platform is going at an exponential scale, right? In terms of our API traffic and data volume. Obviously, we have aggressive SLAs with the customers, and the need for speed is really high. So if I can put it this way, a metaphor I could use here is think of it like the platform. The need of what we do here is you are looking for a needle in a haystack, not from one room, probably in multiple rooms. You're looking for one needle across multiple rooms in those haystack. That's kind of what we do. A lot of parallel processing, a lot of high throughput, data intensive, complex data intensive operations we do behind the scene. So how do we use? How do we use it? I would say, if I can put it simply, we are using Cosmos DB at its fullest capacity, in a lot of terms, right? So that's basically how I can define it. So the use case, here is absolutely it's hitting on all the top areas with respect to the speed, resiliency, and such.
Makes sense. And if you would say, what is one capability of Cosmos DB that made it a really good fit for the fraud alerting?
Yeah, I would say, so just to clarify, it's like credit card dispute prevention is the use case, right?
Yeah.
So I give you three, not one. So for us, high availability, resiliency, and performance throughput are the paramount for the platform success, right? So what we found, Cosmos DB checks off all those boxes and proven to be the right tool for the right job. So in all these things, there is no way we can trade off one or compromise one over the other. Cosmos DB was really helpful for us to pushing all these different aspects to the fullest, and then able to deliver on the solution, make sure we are able to fully function across all our global data centers across all the different regions. So that, to me, all those three are key, and Cosmos DB was able to really help us grow and scale with a really high speed, in a quick turnaround overall.
You can't even imagine how grateful I am from hearing you say this, because that is exactly the use cases that we've built Cosmos DB for. And MasterCard, to me, is an epitome of what a highly available and scalable system ought to be, right? I use it, I'm a customer, and I expect it to just work all the time. I expect it to never fail.
Yeah.
Not
Exactly.
like 5 nines or 6 nines, any nines. And Niraj, you mentioned you focus on availability and resiliency. How do you use Cosmos DB? And I think Siddiq mentioned active-active. How do you use the Cosmos DB in this setup?
Yeah. So as Siddiq mentioned, our Clarity platform is a multi-region platform. So we need to get the data replication across the region. So let's start with the data ingestion process, right? So we ingest the data, billions of records, and then that need to be replicated, available in other regions. So that high availability kind of plays the big role on what we are offering to our customers across the globe. So that is one of the vital part of our Clarity scale. And the data ingestion process, like 2 years back, we used to deal with the 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes of data, but now it's scaled to double digit of data set, and still able to handle that SLA, with which we have very strict SLA in terms of response time and high availability. That's where the Azure Cosmos DB played a vital role in our success story.
That's really great to hear. That's exactly how Microsoft Cloud uses Cosmos DB as well. These are the type of scenarios where it needs to be global, it needs to just work, it needs to be available always, and enable you to do writes no matter which region you're doing the writes. And so as you do those writes, I imagine given the nature of the Clarity platform and the use case, the traffic is not constant, right? It varies. Do you guys use the auto-scale capabilities, and how useful it is for you? What do you do with it?
Yeah, it's a game changing for us. So let me start with a journey back. When we went live with the Cosmos DB, we were pretty manual scaling. So our high intent jobs, like the ingestion part, which takes hours to ingest the data of billions records. And parallelly, we are doing the lookup when the updates are happening. So from manual to the auto scale, which we successfully rolled out last year, it played a big role. One, in scaling the platform from 100 to 1,000 TPS, but also parallelly executing those complex and heavy intent jobs without manually going and updating those RUs. So that's where I think it played an important role on where we stand today, and also looking forward for the growth which we expect in the near future.
Oh, that's really great to hear, because that's exactly when we were deciding whether to offer reactive autoscale versus proactive instant autoscale. That is a scenario where you don't want to compromise availability to achieve this optimal autoscale, but at the same time, you do want it to save you cost. That's great to hear. And I hope some of those capabilities that I mentioned through our session, like dynamic autoscale, per partition, per region autoscale, you will find a good use for, because it will allow you to scale differently in different regions automatically, depending on the time of day and depending on the traffic. Go ahead.
Yeah, you nailed that. You nailed exactly that point where we are kind of looking forward for that, because some regions we need scale at a different level than the other regions, right? because the traffic is so fluctuating, depending on the day of a given time, right? So definitely looking forward for that capability, and we'll see how we can benefit from that.
Awesome. I'm really grateful for you guys to join me on this show. Thank you, and thank you for being a customer of Cosmos DB. I hope Cosmos DB will continue to provide you capabilities that do not disappoint you. Thank you. Thank you, Siddiq. Thank you, Neeraj.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to see the capabilities that Cosmos DB has built used specifically for the reasons that we've built them for. In this case, MasterCard used Cosmos DB active-active and auto-scale, limitless scale for their use case. Now, we've talked about just some of the capabilities of Cosmos DB, and you'll hear a lot more throughout the day. Please tune in and hear from our engineers and our customers about their stories. You'll hear about vector and hybrid search and best practices with it. You'll hear about the hybrid search and vector search coming into the core API of Cosmos DB at any scale with the superior DiskKNN algorithm. You'll see a lot more advances in elasticity, including burst capacities that are already generally available, including hierarchical partition keys. And yesterday we announced ability to change partition key on your database. You'll hear about our transanalytical capabilities, including full fidelity change feed now in preview, materialized views, and what we announced 2 days ago, Microsoft Fabric Mirror for Cosmos DB that allows you to mirror in near real time, mirror your data in Fabric and perform joins across your data in Cosmos, in SQL, and other databases. There is so much more that I have to tell you. Please tune in to the sessions during this day, and I really hope you like our conference, and thank you for joining us today.